tonight, I'm going to try something new. I just like trying stuff. So I'm going to kind of build to a point that I've kind of been building towards for a while. I had like a really crazy winter, you know, when things start to kind of, when points start to kind of converge and you start to kind of realize why you're here and what you're supposed to do and why you're doing it and how to do it. So I'm going to start from a beginning, not like the beginning, but a beginning. I go by the name Onyx Ashanti because after the Rodney King riots in Atlanta, because there were Rodney King riots all over the country after the Rodney King verdict, and we had a meeting at Morehouse at one of the buildings there, and one of the speakers said, okay, you're gonna flip some cars, you're gonna, you know, burn some stuff up for a few days, but after that, what are you gonna do? What's your next step after flipping over some cars? And the next day, I don't know. It just was the blackest thing I could think of, and it was at that time I needed to find a way to kind of create an identity that I didn't feel like I had, right? So that kind of started a lot of stuff, right? And, you know, and I started street performing, playing on the street to kind of find this sound that I didn't really have a reference for. You know, at the time I was playing R&B because that was exciting at the time because I didn't know how to play. So that was, you know. And so I wanted to try, and I was trying to find something, right? And so along the way, I would do these things like, you know, do this extremely painful tattoo that was also, you know, in America, there's, you know, we like, when I got here yesterday, one of the guys here said, "Welcome back." I thought that was really fresh. You know, there's this feeling of trying to find who you are, you know, to try to contextualize it a bit, right? And so, you know, I got my Eye of Horus here, tied that into the technology, and I'm supposed to get the hand done so that it kind of comes out of my fingers. So it's like culture, technology coming out of my fingers, coming out of my hands, you know. And at the time, I didn't really understand what it meant. I just knew that I needed to do that thing, right? And then over the winter, I got into fractals. And then I started understanding that humans themselves are fractals. You have this origin point here. This is where thought originates. This is where the ideas live, and they propagate amongst our collective minds, right? And then they kind of express themselves through our emotions, through our speech, through the things that we do and the things that we think, especially in our hands and our feet. This part of your arm is much, you know, you can move it a lot, but it's much less movable than this part of your arm. And this part of your arm is much less movable than your hand. And this part of your fingers are much more maneuverable than any other part of your arm. And the same goes for your legs and your feet, which was the reason why about a year or so ago, I decided I don't want to wear shoes on stage. I want to let that, you know, free. Let this expression thing go where it's supposed to go. Now, trust me, this leads somewhere. I promise. My dad's a preacher, so we talk a lot. So, the reason why I was telling you all of that is because a few years ago, I decided I want to be able to do the things that I do with a saxophone, which is what I used to play, but I want to have that expression, that thing, whatever that is. I didn't know what to call it, or I still don't. I'm still kind of learning those things, but I wanted something that was going to be able to put those into a perspective that I could use, right? So I went online and discovered little pieces at a time. Discovered open source. Open source is people who make things and then they tell you how they made it. That's amazing, you know, that you can actually find very sophisticated things online and learn how to make them, how to use them, and then share what you learned so that someone else can benefit from it, right? So these are my my babies. This is, I call it an exo voice. I used to call it a Beatjazz controller when it used to control synthesizers. But now I call it an exo voice. I call it, it's basically like a voice for the mind. Since your voice, and since your mind controls the rest of your body, it's part of your voice. So this is my exo voice. Now, the thing is that I've added a new piece that I'm debuting here today, and I'll explain it to you. There are people here who are very anxious about me putting this on because last night when I got here to test it, it started smoking 3 times. And we blew a fuse. So here we go. Oh, I'm not playing yet. It's supposed to have servo motors. The servo motors are supposed to work, but I'm scared, so I'm not going to use them. This is the place for my mohawk because you just have to do that, right? And this is part of my interface. It's a 3-way interface. I'm not going to explain everything to you yet. I'm going to play it a little bit. And then I'm going to explain it because then it might make a little bit more sense. All right? I need to warm it up anyway, so this will give me a chance. The visualization you see on the screen, this is the software I wrote for it. And I hope that I've illustrated all the elements, but I'm going to explain it real quick. I usually have a microphone, but this one's new, so I haven't added the mic yet. If you can imagine a saxophone. But since this is digital, there's no need to hold it like this because it's not a tube. So it's the same saxophone, basic saxophone fingerings, here and here. And there's an accelerometer on each hand. You can see it on the screen. Now, these buttons here, all of these have a particular type of a sound element attached to them. Like that. Oh. This one's new. This one's a fractal oscillator. This one's supposed to be unpredictable, but it's a little bit too unpredictable. So, right? This one's my chords. Right? And then this one's supposed to be voice, but I don't have the voice on it today. So. Now, you might think that what I'm about to play is inadvertently sloppy. But it's actually going to be sloppy on purpose to prove a point about something I'm going to explain about the system. And that is that all mistakes lead to something greater than the embarrassment of making a mistake. So now I like to start with something that I would have considered a mistake at one point and evolve it into something. Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. Right there, wait a second. So the point that I'm making, all right, so the point that I'm trying to make is that what's happened in the last year, oh, don't worry, I'm playing again. But I have to bend these carefully or I'll just snap it off. Here we go. The motors are, it was supposed to be so cool. It was supposed to be so cool. It was going to be like, and it's going to clamp on and all of that. But yeah, what can you do? So there are aspects of this that are interesting. Like I said before, a lot of this has come from basically just, I don't know if it's obvious or not, just being a strange person and not really understanding why. You know, you you don't really have any context. So rather than trying to keep finding context, why not create context? Why not create a mold and then iterate it? Now, that in itself sounds easy because it's a sentence and it's words, and it sounds easy to say things that are very hard to do. So over time, it became a thing of, okay, what am I trying to find? I still don't know. But I do know how to iterate, how to create the function of going in that direction, right? So it was really funny about, there was a period where everything changed in October of this last year. A friend of mine was like, because I was very much on this Afrofuturism thing. I used to wear a helmet, and it was carbon fiber, and I was going to make a carbon fiber Afro helmet. Seriously. I was going to make a carbon fiber Afro helmet. Uhuru. Right? And so I had the whole plan all ready. And so a friend of mine, he's a producer, does really great stuff, and we're sitting around having a chat. And I'm explaining to him my whole Afrofuturism thing, and he's looking at me, he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what? And I'm ready to defend it. He's like, dude, you're not Afrofuturism, you're just futurism. Just be futurism. And I'm like, because the Afro helmet never really happened because it was silly, basically. And there wasn't any function that I could get to fit it properly. So at that point, I said, okay, let me go for function. Let me go for that thing without trying to put it in this other box, right? So, like for instance, the reason why this design is like this is because I have a mohawk and I'm not going to cut it off to put on an Afro helmet. So I'll just build a design around what's already there. It fulfills the function, right? One of the guys last night, I'm not going to play right now. One of the guys last night, he saw this. He said, oh, that must have cost like 700, 800, euros to build that thing. And it's like, no, it cost about 70 euros. I have a 3D printer at home, a Reprap, which is open source. A designer, a mechanical engineering designer named Adrian Valyers, who taught at Cambridge. He decided to make a self-propagating 3D printer because he wanted something that could be taken anywhere and built without a corporation being able to say, okay, we're shutting this party down, no more 3D printers. You can't shut it down unless you're going to stop selling Arduinos, which isn't going to happen, and servo motors. So it's in the wild, and it allows someone like me who never went to engineering school, never did any of that stuff. I've only studied this stuff online to build these things. All of that, and by the way, if you want to build one, it's the open source plans are on my website. You can download this and you can build it yourself. But even that, the purpose of it now, because there are people who have it, but there wasn't a cohesive, unified idea as to why they would want to play it. That a lot of them were just like, oh, well, I just think it would be cool to have lights on my hands and wave them around. And that's cool. But there wasn't something that they were coming into when they decide to either buy it or to build it themselves. So what happened in October, after my friend said the futurism thing, about a week after that, for some reason, on YouTube, you can watch all these documentaries, and I got off into fractals. And I'd already been on the fractals, but actually getting into the algorithms after having designed this for the last few months, right? So it turned into a whole winter of fractal logic, of pattern metaphors, looking at why things in the world are the way that they are, and you start to look at the patterns that people create, patterns that are overlaid onto them outside of their own thing, right? And I've noticed that in the last year, since I started building the system, that everything becomes a pattern. It becomes a fractal pattern, meaning that everything has an origin point, it goes out, and it mutates in a semi-unpredictable direction, and each of those things go out, split, and mutate into semi-unpredictable directions. And the point is that what this is supposed to, I've pretty much lost, what's the word? My mind. I've pretty much lost the ability to imagine beyond function. I don't know what's next. So that's where this function came in. These are, let me see if I can bend it without breaking it. These are electrodes. I was hoping to have them ready today, but after the smoking electric stuff last night, there was no way I was going to fry myself with that today. So you'll just have to trust. I've done experiments with it before at home, and it works, and it's really cool. Basically, these electrodes, there would be one here and one here. So at the ends of these electrodes and here, that's an electrode pad. That's what the metal is here. This is to produce a state called, there's a technique called transcranial direct current stimulation. You send a small amount of electric current here. This is the anode. This is where the positive would come in. You put the cathode here. So it would drag itself across your brain and depolarize the neurons in that area, allowing your brain to think outside the box as a regular thing, right? So, oh yes, oh, I'm going there. Oh, trust me. Oh, I've been preparing for this talk. It depolarizes the neurons. So basically what this means is that a lot of us, humans in general, we are pattern creatures. We tend to have set patterns that govern us. A lot of times they keep us safe. A lot of times they put us in a box. By depolarizing them every once in a while, not every day, not every performance, but depolarizing them ever so often within a matrix that is not based on structure. The only structure is the interface for creating it. I think the two together could create a state that would be beneficial, although I won't go so far as to predict exactly what it will do. All I'll say is I don't think I'll fry myself, right? So, and the point of this is to kind of look at the world that we're coming into now. This world there is no precedent for what we have right now. We are connected. Let me put it like this. We know that other people in the world exist, and we are no more than one person removed from those people that maybe 150 years ago were just myth or legend or something that someone else had to tell us about. We have all of this opportunity to be able to be able to trade this information. And then you have open source. You have people who are saying, oh, that thing you want to do that you've dreamed about your whole life, oh yeah, here, check this out. Here's the open source programming language to do it. Here's the open source hardware to build it. Here's the forums to be able to ask really smart people really tough questions, and they'll probably give you an answer that's 3 paragraphs or less. This is unprecedented, and it can drive you insane, and it can scare a lot of people. So rather than being scared, I think we have to kind of start figuring out our own ways to depolarize our neurons so that we can accept this new information, absorb it, and put it into a matrix of our own creation so that we can do these things that we think need to happen for that next thing that none of us really have a word for. That was a lot of talking, so I'm going to play, and then I'm going to leave the stage. So thank you for listening to me ramble, and I'm going to play a little bit.
Ok. Uau. Eu acho que esse é feito. Oi? Ai, vai tocar. Ih, eu interrompi.
Okay, that's it.